Hey everybody, we're going to start up here in about a minute, so get comfy, have a seat, and get ready to hear some stories. I love this. All the conversations, everybody seeing each other, the community gathering together. Do you know what? It is Wednesday, July 12, 2023, the third night of the 36th Summer Fishtrap Gathering of Writers. Thanks for all coming down, everybody. Yeah! It's Wednesday night. It's Wednesday night. Welcome to all of you who came to the Wallowa Lake Lodge, those of you who are registered for Summer Fishtrap, and especially you folks who came out from the community. It's always rewarding to see folks coming from all over Wallowa County. People are visiting, campers, and I know at least a couple of you came from LeGrand and even Lewiston tonight, so just for this reading, it's really good. I also want to welcome all the folks who are watching this live at fishtrap.org or on Fishtrap's YouTube channel. I have more for you folks later tonight. Next thing I want to say is just thanks to the many of you folks that ultimately make Summer Fishtrap possible by coming and by tuning in. But there are also a bunch of other organizations who really help too, and we couldn't do it without them, including the National Endowment for the Arts, the Kinsman Foundation, Oregon Arts Commission, the Miller Foundation, the Roadhouse Foundation, Wallowa Lake Lodge, of course, who are our hosts here, Eastern Oregon University's Masters of Fine Arts program in creative writing, the Book Loft, who is here tonight afterwards. Yep. The mighty Book Loft in Enterprise has been a part of Summer Fishtrap since the very first one in 1988, and all the books from our faculty and instructors and participants and community members, you can find many of them up in the bookstore up there, and if you buy them here, 20% of the sales go to Fishtrap, so it's a nice way to do it, and you can get the book signed, which is really nifty. Also, the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce, Terminal Gravity Brew Pub. I'm going to mention this every night I'm up here because they set up these tents out here for us as part of a sponsorship. It's great. It's great. Go visit them on your trip. All right. As each night, we have 3 featured readers who are our instructors, our faculty during Summer Fishtrap. During the days, they're teaching classes with most of you, learning things. In the afternoons, we ask them to participate in some sort of craft talk or activity. And then we ask them always one night during the week, would you do a featured reading for the general community? And here's our first reader for the night. Our first featured reader is Roberto Ascalon. Roberto is leading one of the Summer Fishtrap youth workshops. He's got the 9th through 12th grade young people. And yeah. This is his first year at Summer Fishtrap, and we're super happy to have Roberto. Here's a little bit about him if you don't know. Roberto is a New York-born poet who teaches across the Northwest. He is a Kundiman, Jackstraw, and Artist Trust Fellow, a two-time Seattle Slam team member, and winner of the 2013 Rattle Poetry Prize. Get this. His residencies have led to multimedia expeditions at the Frye Art Museum, the Seattle Art Museum, and the Museum of History and Industry, which earned him a trip to the White House, where he had the honor of shaking hands with President Obama. Who else here has shaken hands with President Obama? Yeah! That's Nick Lundy, folks. Or any president. Oh, yeah, Marianne Hurt, good. Well, you can shake hands with Roberto after the show. For now, he graduated in 2016 from Western Washington with a degree in creative writing. Please welcome to the Fishtrap podium for the first time, Roberto Ascalon.
Thank you, Mike. I wanted to say thank you as well to Shannon. I really wanted to say thank you to Cam. When I got on the ground, he whisked me away from the door of my car, and he said, "Oh yeah, this is on," and then he took me fishing. And it just so happens that I've never fly fished before, but I'm in love with this place, with the things that happen here, with the land. I want to honor the Nez Perce. I want to honor all the generations of poets that have been here before. I know that I'm just a part of an ongoing stream, a flow, a river. I'm going to start with a poem. I'm going to start with a poem about my mom, because we're talking about generations. This is called Unfinished Letters from Your Son. Dear Mom, I have tried to write this to you so many times before. Dear Mom, hi, how are you? How are the little birds? Are they coming to the feeder this year? Mother, my body lay deep sleeping in your thorax as you flew from the east on iridescent gossamer wings to lay your eggs in the Big Apple. And I, after eating out the core, have finally metamorphed in a place where the road signs on I-5 tell me they quarantine apple maggots. Ma! Please stop calling my underwear panties. I know it's a covertly matriarchal culture, indistinct in its gender differentiations, but you don't know how embarrassing it is to hear, "Rob, please get your panties out of the bathroom." It's underwear, Ma. The word is underwear. Dear Mother, Mike, pardon me for the French. Dear Mother, I fucked a parade of white girls on your bed. Or maybe I got fucked. I can't tell which is true, each of whom I thought might dilute the power of my blood, your blood, all in uncomfortable tribute to your desire for a mestizo nose. Dear Mommy, Oedipus was the first prodigal son, and though I have squandered the riches of your love, I will not return home. And I refuse to tear out my eyes because you taught me at least how to look for truth. Dear Mama, you gave me brown skin, Roy Ayers' pretty brown skin, pretty summertime brown skin, and like Sekou, who first spoke to me in song the flooded fifth note of blue, I choose to wear my skin like a skin color. Dear mother, you gave me the gift of Babel. I, like other poets before me, was born with 2 tongues, but that I might fit in, you saw fit to amputate one. You had not the heart for branding my face with fire, so like a hydra, 1,000 tongues have sprouted in its very place. All right, Ma, your body is falling apart. They're replacing tendons, kneecaps, shoulders, but still, the bionic woman ain't got shit on you. Dear mother, I saw you age a decade overnight. The one night I drove home from school, lost and afraid, because this mortal coil was wrapped too tight around my neck like a wool scarf in winter. Ma, this flesh of your flesh, blood of your blood, aches to find its own will, its own purpose. I ache to know God. Ma, forgive me. Forgive me for my sins, because I'm sorry. I'm so, so very sorry. Dear Mom, I've tried to write this to you so many times before. Dear Ma, hi, how are you? How are the little birds? Are they coming to the feeder this year? Mike, I don't know about linear time. Can somebody give me a hand raise when I got 6 minutes? 6 minutes? Thank you. I also want to give another set of thanks to my job, Fearless Ideas, who gave me time. And I want to give a big thank you to my family, who makes my time. How many of y'all have had Spam? This is called Spam. My father's love is a fried Spam sandwich on Wonder Bread with extra mayo, all wrapped up in aluminum foil. The sandwich is his version of Catholic communion. It's his way of saying, I love you, which he didn't say very often when I was growing up. But I ate a lot of Spam. In church, you eat the body of Christ and receive holy life eternal. And with Spam, you eat pork that stays good in a can forever. Sunday brunch at our house at its finest. Garlic fried jasmine rice laced bright with sea salt and green scallions. Hot dogs pan-seared. Eggs sunny side up, the edges brown to a fine crunch. And my favorite, golden brown leaves of thin sliced Spam fanned out like a deck of brand new cards. And it is a fact, Filipinos love to eat canned meats. In the Philippines, canned meat is luxury. It says to the neighbors, I'm rich and I can afford to buy meat. American meats. But I wasn't born in the Philippines. I grew up in New York City where nobody really ate Spam. Back home, it was a joke, a sign, a tell, a mark. Spam is kitsch. It belongs in the secret stash of a 50s fallout shelter in between the dusty boxes of iodine and the 15-gauge shotgun shells. And it's realer than real. It's not food. It's irony. Spam is G.I. Joe's favorite dinner. It's the first animal that man ever invented. And it's what the people get after their livestock is slaughtered and all the able-bodied men are killed. Spam goes great with a scorched earth policy. The meat that comes after the war. Maybe that's why Southerners love it so much. I can still see my father's face inhaling the sizzle hot turning the crackling slices over, saying, "You are gonna love this." And in high school, I zipped my knapsack tight so the other kids couldn't smell my house when I walked down the halls. I thought they might smell the hangdog look in my father's eyes and taste the history of yesterday's fry pan. Because, you see, Spam is class in a can. It's the mark of the colonizer. It's a metal brand on the inside of my tongue. It's my father's heart, deep fried in sacred bacon fat kept in a coffee can under the sink next to the Ajax. Spam is the shame of animals not knowing the names for all their parts. It's the salt flesh of yesterday's American colonial expedition, surviving heat wave after heat wave in the equatorial pantries of my father's homeland. Spam is a brick of pink gold, glistening in the merienda afternoon. Spam, the American flag, come home to roost in my palate, take up residence in my arteries. It's the last 100 years of neo-colonial foreign policy, bumping up all of our insurance premiums. Spam is the export product that Iraqi children ask for by name. And Spam. It's my father's fatty love. It's the rosy pink that says, "I care," straight from the pigs of America's heartland. So, this one is going to start like this kind of section where I'm going to talk, I talked about my forebears. I'm going to talk about my wife. She's right there, Anna. Sorry, shouldn't have called you out. This one is called "My Love is a Pearl." And it's called, I've called it a kundiman. A kundiman is a love song in the Philippines. It's a love song that essentially was in the late 1800s, from the turn of the century, and it was a patriotic, it was actually like a patriot song that was kind of put on these plays across the Philippines. I've actually never heard one before, so I made it up. But it's a love song for my wife and for the Philippines and for a lot of other things, including my son. My love is a pearl. A pearl, a seed, a grain of sand, one grain of sand inside of time. Inside the thing that is inside of us. A piece of me, some kind of love I can't describe. I can't describe because to fit all things inside recalls the end of space and time and being called to part with flesh to kneel before the face of God. But I am just a little thing, a paper cup to hold the world. I'm lucky that my love is too. One drop of liquid sun inside the sea, inside the thing that lives within the hourglass of time. My love. She is a tidal wave whose face invokes all nameless things, an ocean force, an awesome thing that draws itself into itself. She moons the flood back to the shore, sounds siren songs, sings home is near, amidst the fleet of ebbed and unmoored boats adrift. She is a little beach. I taste her taste beneath my tongue, her grit beneath my teeth. My love, her name, it calls me home, wherever home as she might be. Her body then, a beacon pulse, a lighthouse fire that burns the dawn upon the surface of the sea. A liquid drop, a tiny thing, a candle held against the sky. We are perhaps a simple tale of things that come and go, reborn upon the sound of time, a prayer wheel, a season's turn, a way to mark the biggest thing, tiny though we are. My love, she is a crooning hymn, a mother's mouth, the nascent heat of fresh baked bread. Pandasal, a thing I gave up long ago, the Eucharist, forgiveness for the things I did or did not do, a pain I cleaved upon myself. My love, she puts inside my mouth herself and offers up herself, as much as she can give, forgives herself and hopes to God that it can too. My love, she opens up her palms, admits she is the smallest thing. And so she lets herself into the light, becomes the fluid of the sun. Impossible to separate ourselves. We have become a sea of us, layering inside ourselves inside a little oyster's shell, whose nacreous protects the tiny grain of sand by turning it into a pearl. This one is called, again, A Question of Fire. A couple of years ago on my birthday, there was a lockdown in Seattle, and everything was closed up, and the Black Lives Matter movement and the pushback against things happening across this country and the murder of people in the streets kind of shut things down. And, you know, I have not, I just haven't been writing a lot. And I just want to, again, last thanks and gratitude. Thank you all for being here. Like, this kind of gives me an excuse to read and to write after the pandemic and everything. So this is called, again, A Question of Fire. In the years since my son was born, I have not easily written a poem, which I think is strange for a poet, but not as strange as the world catching fire again, which I think I may have seen before. Perhaps during one of my late night vigils, the kind that wake in me a desire to beat the dawn to the truth and ignore the sleep required to get up early enough to make breakfast for my son, who gets up before the sun itself and sets our little life to blaze with the work of the day, which is a phenomenon that seems to beg the question, perhaps it is not so strange the world should want to be on fire again, since the world is the mouth of poems, and inside the world is liquid fire, and every poem is the mouth of the inside of fire, transforming fire, like the fire that sows sequoia, or that ripples the belly with every contraction, or that takes the form of my own son, whose every word and question sets me alight, like the time he kept asking, "Yes, Papa, but what is fire?" A question I could not answer for the life of me. A question which will fuel tomorrow, the hunting pinprick of dead stars, the question from a never-ending past that has always ever burned below our dangling feet and swirled around us and scaled our eyes and tangled mats into our hair and dribbled at the corner of our mouths and dripped from our noses and stained our shirts and run down our shoelaces. much the same way breakfast sometimes explodes all over my son. And so to ignore the fact that we were ever always on fire is also to say that we ignore the fire in ourselves, or the fire of poetry, or the fire of first love, or the fire that cleans the house, or the one that allows for birth and rebirth, the fire of change, which is another word inside the fire of our children's mouths. And this last one is called Cradle. It's very short. Cradle. When I donate blood, I always ask the technician if I can hold the bag afterwards. What does 1 quart of me feel like? I want to know. And they never let me. It is against regulations to hold yourself in that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. Roberto and our other youth workshop instructor who read last night, Janae Brown-Wood, are pulling together these wonderful minds to do the most creative things. And yeah, that's right. And it's always, I was going to say shocking at how creative and wonderful the work that come out of these young minds is. And you are all invited to come to see the Youth Showcase Friday. Yeah, that stands for Friday at 1:30 p.m. right here. The public's welcome. We like to get families of the young writers to come too, but you can come support them. All right. Our next featured reader is Karen Auvinen, and Karen is leading the 2022-2023 year-long writers workshop. For those who don't know what that is, it's a Fishtrap program where folks start with a small group of writers with the goal of to try to maybe finish a manuscript or a book or something that they've been working on for a long time, to give themselves the gift of a year to concentrate on their writing. And the experience starts with a week at Summer Fishtrap, and then there's a year of independent study, and then the program concludes with another week at Summer Fishtrap. And right now, Karen and her group are concluding their week, and it's fun to see them all sitting up, having court up there on the porch every day. Let's learn more about Karen. Karen Auvinen is an award-winning poet, mountain woman, lifelong Westerner, writer, and the author of the memoir Rough Beauty, finalist for the Colorado Book Award and the Willow Award. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, Lit Hub, Real Simple, Westward, the Colorado Sun, as well as numerous literary journals, and mucho más. She's earned a master's in poetry from the University of Colorado and a PhD in fiction from the University of Wisconsin. Karen teaches writing workshops all over the place, including several during the pandemic, several Fishtrap virtual online workshops, and you really helped Fishtrap get over the hump with providing those opportunities from people when we couldn't all meet together to do so. Thanks, Karen, for doing that. Some of the other places she's taught her include the Lighthouse Writers Workshops and at the Colorado University in Boulder. Past gigs include writer in residence for the state of Colorado, editor, book buyer, rural post route driver, caretaker, clinic assistant, landscaper, summer camp director, and guest chef. She lives in the Colorado mountains with the artist Greg Marquez, their dog River, and Dottie the cat. Please welcome Karen Auvinen.
Sorry, for the Zoom people, that was my boots. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Fishtrap. And thank you, my year-long students. You are amazing. They have been so joyfully joined from the start, and they do indeed hold court up there every night. But you can see them read on Saturday at 3 o'clock here. And so please come out. They've done some really interesting and amazing things. I will confess that I didn't really think about generations until I heard the readings last night, and I thought, oh, dear. Because, and I'll tell you, I'm just trying to turn on my timer here. There we go. Because I don't really see myself as belonging to a generation or to generations, which will be evident, I hope, from what I read tonight. I don't identify with a lineage because the stories in my family were the stories of men and what they did and who they conquered. And my job as a woman was to support them. And from a young age, I had this fire inside me that said, no, I don't want to do that. So I didn't want to play a supporting role. And I went to college, and I took a feminist theology class. And the great NPR writer, journalist, and witch, Margot Adler, came to my classroom, and she taught me this naming ritual. So here is my lineage. I'm Karen, daughter of Susan, daughter of Alice, daughter of Mary, daughter of Valborg, daughter of Krita, daughter of Brita, daughter of another woman in Finland, and on and on and on. So tonight, I also want to say that when I think of generations, I think of the old growth forest that is around us. So there's that. Go hug a tree. I'm going to read from Rough Beauty, and I'm going to read two parts, one longer and one shorter. And Rough Beauty is my memoir about, because I lived in this family that told me I couldn't, I thought, by God, I can. And so I went and I lived in a wood stove heated cabin by myself with my dog Elvis at 8,500 feet in the Colorado Rockies. And I lived there for 10 years. And so Rough Beauty is the memoir of those years. And it's about the alchemy of wild places. I thought I was going out to be independent and alone, but of course I was really just running away. And it's about the transformational power of land. And it answers the question, the first question it answers is why wilderness, why alone, which is what all my friends ask me. What are you doing up there on the mountain by yourself? And I'm just going to say that nobody asked a guy who goes to the woods, Henry David Thoreau, who does this. But so I answered the question. So I just really, it was my kind of, yes, I can. And so this is the book. It's about the alchemy of wild places. And the alchemy of wild places is that they work on you the way wind works on rocks, the way twin trickles flowing in opposite directions on Miller Pass become the Cache La Poudre and the Colorado. So I went and had this, well, I still live in the mountains, but I live with somebody now. That guy over there. Okay, so this is from the prologue. So what happened is I finished my PhD, I moved to the mountains, and I'm gonna be a writer, and I have 5 jobs because I'm gonna be a writer. And 6 months 9 months later, my house burns to the ground. So this is that chapter. So this is the prologue of the book. And I'm going to read from the prologue, and then I want to read another more happy, poetic passage. So this prologue is called The Hard Prayer, which is from a Galway Canal epigraph. And I got to read Galway Canal, right? And one knows, after a long time of solitude, after the many steps taken away from one's kind toward the kingdom of strangers, the hard prayer inside one's own singing is to come back, if one can, to one's own. A world almost lost, and the exile that deepens when one has lived a long time alone. So this is from the Hard Prayer. And if you buy the book today, you'll get beautiful watercolors by artist Greg Marquez, who's sitting over there. Okay. March was thick with anticipation. The pendulum between winter and spring, between dormancy and growth. The month of hope, the month of change. Its arrival meant winter was certain to end. By then, I'd had nearly 4.5 months of cold and isolation. Sorry. And although I love the quiet, days that were meditative and curving, nights that were icy and full of dreaming, and the kind of luxurious deep sleep that comes when you're wrapped in layers of blanket and down, that didn't mean it was easy. Snow fell a foot at a time. Silence was a presence. Sometimes my own voice broke the stillness like a body crashing through ice. The snap and plunge startled me. And then there was the winter wind, the yang to the yin of snow, which howled and clawed at the cabin, rattling the glass panes like a live thing. Inside such a landscape, you learn to stay put. By March, I was ready to emerge. Driving home that morning, I glanced up through the slender bodies of lodgepole pine, a silhouette of trees against an impossibly blue Colorado sky. A few crows trailed the hillside, scouting for trouble. The birds reminded me of packs of teenage boys, loud and rowdy and full of themselves. It was still early, perhaps 10 a.m., and chilly the first day of March. I built a fire in the wood stove of my cabin where nighttime temperatures inside dipped to the low 50s, and sauteed chopped celery and onion for a corn chowder before I'd gone out to deliver mail on a rural route, one of 3 part-time jobs. Elvis, a handsome blonde husky mix and my constant companion, sat in the seat of the old blue 4Runner next to me, nosing the cold mountain air through a crack in the window. I was thinking about spring, the change of season, despite years of mountain living and the fact that I should know better. My whole body buzzed with thoughts of warmer, longer days, hummingbirds whirring at my desk, the smell of rich dirt rising from the softening earth. The first real glimpse of spring, past flowers shocking the rusted landscape with pale purple, would not come for another 6 weeks, but I allowed myself to be hypnotized by the sensation of thaw. I could feel it in the stiffness of muscles and limbs, the paleness of my skin. My body was ripe for release. In just a few weeks, I'd head out for the equinox in Utah to celebrate the return of sun and let my winter self unknot and loosen her grip. This winter had been full of firsts. I'd finally settled into a home after too many awkward years of moving from place to place. I'd finished the last of 3 college degrees, and I was gloriously alone without the economic necessity and relative instability of housemates. I had only myself to answer or annoy. And after a decade of the roller coaster of odd jobs in school, I'd come to rest at last. Here, I told myself, was where I would begin. In settling down for the first place in my life, my commitment was not to a person, but to a place. Foregoing the possibility of job offers in other states or the economic comfort of a 9-to-5 life, I placed my bet on landscape, putting all my chips on wildness. That morning, I let the day fly ahead with the crows. There were papers to grade, an essay I was working on. I turned my truck onto Crockett Trail, and the forest closed in as I glanced toward home. Inexplicably, something glowed on the rise where the cabin sat. The trees nearby were lit by a warm light, the same lovely, eerie light a campfire casts in the woods. A voluminous orange cloth covered the deck on the west end of the cabin. Against logic, I wondered if my landlord was fumigating. The cloth swayed elegantly in the morning air, forming scarlet and orange ripples that flicked and snapped. It took me a second for the picture to make sense. My home was on fire. Time stuttered and broke, unfolding in slow motion and jerky time-swallowing shocks. Even now, images flash. My truck jolting to a stop 20 feet from the fire, Elvis watching quietly, calmly from the front seat, my hands waving in the air near the deck as if I could put the fire out with their motion, me running for the hose that was already burning. The first rule of fire is to move away, but the instinct to save both the pieces and proof of my existence was automatic. I ran toward the fire, toward the heat, inexplicably thinking of the rent check I'd written out that morning and the first new top I'd purchased in months, hanging inside my closet with the price tag still on. Fire rolled and tumbled in great waves from the front room onto the deck to the west with the steady, systematic roar of a train, the same sound a tornado makes. The house had long north and south faces, and the fire was concentrated in the northwest corner, near the front door and the wood stove, and along the deck on the west side. Flames tongued the gas grill and a half-full tank of propane on the deck. Beneath, a pile of old scrap wood would catch at any moment. The deck burned audibly. The cracks and pops pierced the roar. Inside, a wall of flame advanced through the long tunnel of the house toward the rear of my office. The last tenant had had a chimney fire, I remembered suddenly, a little sick. They were not uncommon on the mountain where so many homes were heated with wood. But all winter, my mantra had been, I'm careful. I'd had the chimney swept in the fall, and my primary fuel, oak, burned hot and clean. Dimly, I recognized my own smugness as part of a collective lie people tell themselves. That won't happen to me is the thin glass between safety and danger, the illusion of control held against a messy, unpredictable world. I ran to the east, thinking of my computer sitting on my desk just 4 feet inside the back door. The fire had progressed only a quarter of the way through the cabin, sending flames into the living room and threatening the kitchen. There was still time. I could save the most important thing, so I opened the back door. The second rule of fire cautions against entering a burning building. But I was already cataloging the work that could be lost: 2 books of poems, a collection of short stories, and a book of essays I'd been working on, countless notes and fragments, and all on my computer. Of course, I didn't have a backup, a fireproof box, a disk stored in my truck or elsewhere. We always imagined disaster as happening to someone else. Even though every writer I'd known whispered the horror of Hemingway's lost stories in shuddering tones, I somehow felt immune to catastrophe, though I'd survived plenty of them in my life. The door sprang free in my hand, and a blast of black smoke kicked me back off the rear porch. I stumbled, coughing, caught myself on the ground 30 feet away, pounding it with my fist, yelling, "No, no, 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 no," as if I could stop what was happening, as if I could extinguish the fire with the strength of my arm hammering the earth and the will of that one thought: stop. This can't be happening shuddered across my brain. I was sobbing now, great gut-wrenching cries rising from the deepest part of my body. But there were no tears, only wails surging from me, like thunder, the sound made in the atmosphere as ions and elements rush back together. And now I had broken the third rule of fire. I had left the door open, and cold mountain air poured into the house, feeding the blaze. More thick black smoke gushed out, billowing across the dry winter ground. The bird feeders were empty, the sky clouded over. I moved away, backed to my truck, and drove it across the road to Chuck and Barbara's, leaving Elvis inside as I went to watch the fire from my driveway. An eeriness set in, a kind of disjointed silence. The world went perfectly still, except for the constant thunder of fire. The woods were marked by the absence of sound. No bird calls or squirrels chattering, no shouts, no gathering crowd. I stood alone, waiting for the fire truck. It began to snow. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm just going to leave you with something a little more poetic and lovely. So I took the fire department an hour and a half to get there and start shooting water into my house. And they did this thing, instead of trying to save my house, they did this thing called surround and drown. So they just wet the fire so it wouldn't go out of the house boundaries, and then they pushed in the walls. And that's when I left. Okay, so I moved to another wood stove heated cabin. At where I lived for 10 years, which is what the body of this book is about. So, and this chapter is just a piece, the first chapter, and the subtitle of the book is 40 Seasons of Mountain Living. So it's 10 years, 40 seasons, and each chapter is a season. And this is a piece of summer. Summer warmed as it often did. One day was spring with lilacs and forsythia popping out along the apron of the mountains that led to the plains, and the next, the temperature blasted into the 80s. Up on Overland Mountain, which is where I lived, after weeks of ululating highs, the days quite suddenly shifted to a perfect 78 degrees. Wildflowers exploding in the meadow behind the cabin and around the peeper pond. As people in Boulder sweltered in near 90-degree heat, almost 3,000 feet down canyon, I stalked the meadows with Elvis in temperate air, collecting wildflowers for my notebook. The soft, fuzzy heads of pussy toes, which looked exactly like delicate cat's paws, the lemony pod-like flowers of golden banner, and the faded purple of lupin. Beneath each variety flattened and taped to the page, I wrote its name and the date in an honest attempt to get to know my neighbors. When I'd first moved to the Bar K cabin, that's the one that burned down, staking my claim on landscape was the equivalence of stubbornly planting a flag and proclaiming territory. It was an act of conquest. I would seize the wild. I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for. The unharnessed life I sought shoved its way into view the day my house burned down. I didn't know then the strength of my own desire. I've never been someone who takes the easy road. Something in my body gravitates toward rocks and sharp edges, toward storms and umbrage. The summer I spent living in a tent in James Canyon after I'd changed my name, that's another story, I decided what I needed was a few nights alone on a mountaintop contemplating my soul. I would fast and sleep out in the open, so I set off with a rain tarp and some water and climbed straight up out of the gulch to the top of Castle Peak, pulling myself hand over foot up its steep face, trying not to look down or think of falling. It was August hot, and by the time I reached the summit, I'd drunk half my water. That evening, a thunderstorm rolled in. As I watched lightning flick and stab moving closer and closer, I realized I was sitting in the highest point in any direction. Unwilling to give up, I lay flat on the ground and sang to the storm. The next day, out of water, I returned early along a path I discovered on the back side of the mountain that meandered sweetly into the gulch. I'd softened a bit over the years. Now I wanted kinship, not conquest. At the High Lake cabin, this is the one I'm living in now, I wanted to become part of the landscape, the passage of seasons. So I wrote it all down. The first pass to the final purple aster that bookended the growing season, the weasel who lived beneath the house and turned snow white in winter, the chipmunk who led her pups to drink rainwater from a basin carved out of rock just east of the garden, the 2 pine siskins I drove to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center after I found them sluggish beneath the bird feeder. Over time, I'd fill a notebook after notebook with what I saw, and in those details grew the story I shared with Overland Mountain. Don't try to write the poem about love, I often tell my students. Write the poem about making apple galette for your lover, or about your grandfather's hands as he ties flies. Let love rise out of the details. So I collected plants and weather, wildlife and birds, and in between the spaces of my notebook, love rose like a fish to the surface, like clouds of pine dust in the air. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen. As with all of these folks, you can meet them after the reading in the lodge. They'll be there to meet you and sign books, chat, all those things. It's kind of a nice little time. I have a little message for all of you folks here live. You can take a break because I want to talk to all you folks watching online, either live or on Fishtrap's YouTube channel later on. Join me over here at camera 2. Hi, everybody online. It's Mike here at Fishtrap, and we really thank you for tuning in and watching these. You know, we've been able to provide many, many programs, hundreds of hours maybe of Fishtrap programming on Fishtrap's YouTube channel. And if you feel like it, might be a nice time to become a fish trapper. You know, it's a great way to be a part of the community and still and receive a lot of benefits too. So. Thanks a lot. Now back to the regularly scheduled program. But wait, Jennifer Hobbs for the raffle. Come on, Jennifer.
Don't get too far, I'm going to have you draw. So tonight we have some wonderful new things, and we have several new fish trappers, and we want to show you the love. Thank you. So before I draw, tonight we have Van Gogh socks from Bikra B. We have 4 $5 gift certificates at the Flying Pig. We have a Fish Trap t-shirt, and a candy bar from the Book Loft. So drum roll, please. Mike's digging deep.
Oh, it's a candy wrapper.
Really? We have Kristen, if I can pronounce the last name, I'll spell the last name. G-R-A-Z, Graziano! Graziano! Thanks, everybody.
Well, that was fun. Our final featured reader tonight is Craig Childs. Craig has been a great friend of Fishtrap for a long time now, and he's kind of done the hat trick more than once. He's taught at Summer Fishtrap. He gave the Summer Fishtrap keynote a few years ago. He's also led both of our outpost wilderness writing experiences on the Zumwalt Prairie and twice down the Snake River in Hell's Canyon. If you want to learn more about those programs and connect to the wilderness and write about it, you can find more at fishtrap.org. Let's see. Oh, and of course, some of you here how many of you here have gone to Sunrise with Craig Childs? Right. Each morning, Craig is meeting a group, is going to the head of the lake here at the amphitheater at the state park, and just spending some time together in silence, enjoying the sunrise. I welcome all of you to try that tomorrow at 6:20-ish, somewhere around there. I think that's when the sun comes over the East Moraine. Craig Childs lives in southwest Colorado. So that's our second Coloradan tonight. He writes about cultural history, science, climate, nature, and the visceral experience of living on Earth. With more than a dozen published books, his subjects range from water in deserts to pre-Columbian migrations across the Southwest. His narrative nonfiction and journalism has appeared in The Atlantic, Men's Journal, The Sun, The New York Times, NPR, and Radiolab. We're all excited to have Craig here again. Please welcome Craig Childs.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I was here earlier today when the student open mic was happening, and damn, fine work, people. You made me want to write, and that's what I did after I went and wrote. So thank you so much for that. And what better place to have readings than where you can hear the Wallowa River behind you or in front of you. And I would recommend that anyone who is here this week writing take a moment alone and just walk right over there. Just go down to the water and stand next to it and listen to it, because the sound of a river going over shallow cobbles and swirling through pools, I think that's the oldest form of storytelling we have. I think that is writing at its core. So if you can take a moment and stand there and listen to those thousands of words that the river is speaking and find a way of moving that into your words, I think that that would do a lot for all of us. So spend a moment out there. I'm reading something today that's fairly fresh. It's a piece of sample writing that is in a book proposal that went out today. Think a happy thought for me, okay? And I knew better than to mention to my agent that I was going to read this, because she would say, "This is not public yet. It's not been edited." But it's happening, because it's related to this theme of generations, and this is part of a book proposal on mountain lions. That hopefully this will actually turn into a book. It came from an encounter that happened several years ago when life was simpler, right? It was simpler several years ago, wasn't it? When I had just moved into an adobe at the edge of a canyon, looking from Colorado across the border into Utah, where normally in the summer we'd leave the windows open at night to let in cool perfumes from these high desert woodlands. Tonight the place is battened down. It is moonless, mid-July, and a storm, a dry storm, blusters through, wind gusting and furious, windows rattling in their jambs. We're all in the same room because there is only one room, and only one bed and one door, big and wooden and banging back and forth as if someone is trying to get in. Asleep on the bed is my younger kid, a 9-year-old, fully dressed, face down atop the bed covers. The older, a middle schooler, sits in a wooden rocker with a laptop open between her knees and headphones over her ears. Her face glows with screen light and concentration. I'm crabbed over my desk, having trouble working with all the banging going on as I write words in different orders, distractedly moving commas back and forth. The storm is coming from Utah and rises into the highlands of western Colorado, where ridges cut it into shreds, drying every leaf and blade of grass. By the time it gets here, it is all teeth. Who could pay any attention? Leaning into my desk, pen scratching paper, I hear through the door outside a terrible scream. It rises like a thumbnail raked up a harp string. It is not wind. The sound is almost human, causing my shoulder blades to crimp. Not just human, but a woman having something unthinkable done to her. It sounds like murder. My body wants to fly to the door and throw it open at the same time. It wants to jump under the covers and hide. The scream lifts a second time from the same place, not more than 30 feet from the front door, and I go to the window, seeing a flare of rabbit brush with dried tiny flowers, their seed heads blown away. Battered by invisible forces, the bush nearly flattens to the ground, springs back up, then flattens again. That's all my desk light gives me through the glass. There's no doubt what the cry is, not the shrill, almost feline shriek of a fox, or the grating bird-like bark of a bobcat, certainly not coyote with manic yips and howls. This is mountain lion, a female in heat, I'm guessing, sleek goddess, yellow cat, apex predator, 100 pounds, maybe 150. My blood screams back. I am animal too, remember? I glance at Aspen, the kid in the wooden rocker composing on her screen, and wave until I catch her attention. She lowers headphones to her shoulders and immediately breaks eye contact with me, looking off to the side as if it would help her to hear better. Her eyes widen, then narrow, trying to figure out what she's listening to. She knows it's an animal, not human. When her eyes show no answer, I say under the wind, "Mountain lion." A grin comes to her face. She's touched by something wild. She knows the cats by their tracks, where we'd stop to measure them with our hands. Not like a bear you might pass over with a comment or two, or coyotes who show up everywhere, but the appearance of something golden, a holy ghost in the woods. She's never had one this close and known about it. The cat is moving, but not fast and not in any particular direction. She's looking for something. Mostly mountain lions are solitary, the bulk of their lives spent alone. Screaming is a way of finding each other when they need to, or at least it's how they make their presence known to another cat in the area. A second mountain lion starts up, with a similar call 100 feet or so to the south. Who is this? Contender, rival, sister, mother? It is coming from an overgrown draw that leads down to rim rock at the canyon's edge. A third lion begins to scream above the house to the north and the east, sounding like it's on our own gravel driveway, which, if followed a quarter mile, passes by the neighbor's house, where horses fenced in are probably backed into their shed, their ears laid flat, too much to listen to. I'm curious. And though I worry it might wreck the urgent strangeness of this night, I turn on the outside lights to see what might happen. There's no change in volume, interval, or prolongation. I thought the cats might scatter, but we are not their business. Moving to the window to look out, I expect to see one of them revealed in porch light, but I only see what looks like a Crusades battle, wind horses leaping, spears hurling in every direction, and no mountain lion. I should have done something to send them fleeing, threw open the door and fired the 15 gauge into the air to really get them scattered. It's not good for big cats to think they can hang around. What will get a wild mountain lion killed quicker than anything is human acquaintance. It's why I usually track them backwards, to go away from them, to see where they've been and not where they're going. But there's a spell on the world tonight, and I don't want to break it. Large carnivores are screaming at each other, and we are huddled by the door, our senses up on their tiptoes. I put my hand on the door handle, and the girl flashes me a look. She's ready, but questions are on her mind, wide-eyed and watchful at everything. I say, "Stay right on my heels," as I turn the handle and push the door open. In the wind pours. I'm the best papa in the world. Or I'm the worst. The difference is not up to me. Either way, I'd be remiss not to take her out with me. She should be outside this door more than I should. Decades ago, when I lived in a teepee atop a forested plateau nearby, I remember from those years the thinness of the membrane between me and everything else. No way I could miss the sniffing nose of a fox or the first scent of rain. I crawled on my belly to get close to deer or bear, learning not to be seen. Mountain lions came by and left tracks in the years I lived there, but I never saw them. Mountain lions... Anyway, something about mountain lions. Oh my God, this is in the proposal. Oof. It's too late now. What I appreciated about living that way was being so close to everything happening around me, not shut in by a big wooden door. Maslow's hierarchy includes closing us off from the vagaries of nature with its wind and wild beasts. What is left feels hollow, which is why I stepped through the open door into the white incandescence with the girl right behind me, close enough I could bump her back inside should anything go wrong. Porch light throws shadows against a wall of shrubs and stocky, many-branched trees in motion. Beyond the light is a larger sphere of darkness, a dome of sky dusted with stars, Milky Way running like a river. If lights don't interrupt them, I'm sure opening the door and stepping outside will at least elicit a pause, perhaps a scatter. I want to hear the soft pad of their flight as they flee. They don't care. Nothing changes. Each vocalization lasts several seconds, answered by another and another. I strain to see through waving branches, thinking I'll catch a glimpse of one. Diaphragm muscles tensing, mouth half open to let out the sound, seen for only half a second as windows part through the trees. I see nothing but blowing woods, as if the cat knows exactly how near it can be, a perimeter that must glow inside the head of Puma concolor like a radar. Pass this line and they'll see you. A mountain lion can leap 20 feet from a stationary position. This is documented. And I'm guessing we have 50 feet, not accounting for the off chance of one of the farther cats who might break into a silent sprint for us. The girl stands beside me, her shoulder a couple inches away. It would take just half a second to shove her inside and slam the door closed, but that's not what's happening here. These are not Jurassic predators, heart-racing pack hunters, and tonight has nothing to do with hunting. These warm-blooded felines are exchanging information, finding out who is who in order to maintain ample spaces for hunting, mating, denning, and raising young. We are in a council meeting, a convergence of queens. They know each other. Males are a different story, not as prone to vocalizing, as likely to erupt into a brawl, no longer making delicate moves as branches shatter and claws dig into each other. With 3 cats here, I figure they have to be female. Their cries cool my blood, a dose of nervousness, a sound of murder, even though I know it's not. We scoot back inside, pull the door closed behind us, and listen through its whistling cracks. Nothing about this caterwaul changes. I can't tell if the girl is afraid or fascinated, both, I hope. I could debrief her, say something wise or informative, but I can see by her stare at the door that she's calculating on her own. I could have said that there are parallel worlds happening all around us, worlds we dip in and out of all the time, but she already knows. Any kid who's spent a lick of time outdoors is aware of birds and insects, lives besides our own. As for danger, she's aware of that too. We've walked in the wild together, clapping and shouting and banging sticks. She knows from the way I positioned her body behind me against the open door that danger was present, but not immobilizing. Every inch you move forward, you go deeper into their world. Mountain lions are curious, but they're also cautious. Humans don't yet register automatically as prey, though a scurrying kid can make a fine, easy meal. I send her off for toothbrushing and give her a big t-shirt to sleep in. I pull clothes off the younger to sleepy moans and a liquid nodding head. They are both soon asleep under the covers, arms flopped over each other like octopuses. The lions do not stop. They draw closer and then farther away, slowly circling the house, continuing past midnight, and I've given up on getting any work done. Instead, I sit in the wooden rocker with the lights off, positioning each cat in my mind, hearing that they never let down their guard. A strategic distance kept at all times, and I am in my armor in the center, these walls hanging off of me like lead. In their communications are tones of compliance and dominion that I can't decipher, though I listen through every straining chord, feeling the hum in my bones. I am not sleeping outside, and the floor seems far away, so I push the kids over and crawl into bed with them. When morning comes, the air is still, and the lions are gone. They must have stopped at 1 or 2 a.m., closing out a 2 or 3 hour rumpus, the time normally when a shoe gets thrown out of an alley window at a yowling house cat, not so different in form or function, but smaller by at least 100 pounds. Light filters into the day, jays screech at each other, and nuthatches honk their tiny horns. Wearing a robe, I walk with tea in hand, checking for any sign of what happened last night, and I find nothing. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. And thanks to all of you folks for coming out tonight. Just a couple notes before we go. For all of you, Summer Fishtrap participants, we have a few things going on tomorrow that are pretty cool. At 1:30 is a discussion on our theme of generations with Luis Urrea, Jamie Ford, Janae Brown-Wood, and Roberto, who read tonight. And it's led by Shannon McNerney. And at 3 o'clock, a discussion on Deborah Magpie Erling's new book, The Lost Journals of Sacagawea, with the Josephi Center's library director and Fishtrap co-founder, Rich Wanschneider, who's sitting right over there. That's happening at 3 o'clock. And then for all of you here in Wallowa County and everyone online, tomorrow night's lineup featured readers are Perrin Kearns, who is launching the new year-long writers workshop, the 2023-2024, and longtime friend of Fishtrap, plus Washington State Poet Laureate Rena Priest, and Robert Stubblefield, who is leading this year's virtual Summer Fishtrap workshop, but he's right here with us in Wallowa County. So, thanks for coming out. Hope you had a good time. Go on into the lodge and meet the authors, and hope to see you tomorrow night.